What up, what up, what up, what up? Live Reality Games Podcast. I'm Daniel Ball, joined by Stephen Stewart. And Stephen, we have the pleasure tonight. We got Paige Fraser joining us. She is LRG just vet. She is now a friend of mine. I met her playing Survivor Angelica, and we're happy to bring her on to talk Survivor 47, episode 11. We're breaking it all down. First and foremost, out the gate, Stephen, Thanksgiving, West Coast, was it good? Were you able to travel safely? Was it smooth for you? I see you're back in your office. Like, I got to know, how was it?
Getting out there was easy. Weather was wonderful. We got our turkey from Popeyes, which apparently sells turkeys. That was a learning moment. Getting back a little hairier, landed in San Antonio at 4 a.m. this morning, taught a class at 9 a.m., but it all worked out, and here I am.
So was that class done virtually, or you actually made it from San Antonio?
I was in person.
Oh, wow. Now that's airline efficiency at its finest, man. I tell you what, like, I don't know what airline, but they need to be endorsed. That's big time, because I've heard some horror stories from some friends that did some traveling this weekend, and they were not happy. So you're one of the lucky ones.
I'll take it.
For me, when it comes to flying and traveling, as long as I make it to my destinations in one piece and safely, like, yes, I'll be frustrated if it takes longer than I want. But the reality is as long as I hit the ground in one piece, I'm good. I'll take it.
The true horror was the $22 sandwich I bought at the Burbank airport. And I didn't know it was $22, so I'm buying it. And they're like, well, it comes with chips. I'm like, I guess that makes it marginally better.
But what did it taste like? Did it taste like a $6 sandwich, or did it taste like a $15? Because we all know it didn't taste like a $22 sandwich.
I mean, that would be unreal.
It was large. It was filling. It was exactly what I thought it would taste like. I'll go $8 to $10 sandwich, but it did not have bacon or avocado or any premium ingredient to get me up to a $22 evaluation.
I mean, you had zero add-ons. It's not like Chipotle where you go and everything is extra 75 cents, and before you know it, your burrito that you thought was going to be $10 is $32. So, but with that, we could talk Thanksgiving, we could talk food and Chipotle all night, but we got to talk Survivor, and I want to first introduce Paige. Paige, tell everybody a little bit about you. Obviously, you and I know each other through Survivor Angelica, but you have a wide array of live reality game experience. So tell us a little bit about you and your journey and how you got into LRGs.
For sure. So I played quite a few different games. My very first one was out in Ontario in Huntsville called Survivor Lake of Bays. I played 2 seasons there. And then I'm currently living in Vancouver, BC on the west coast of Canada. So I played on season 1 of Marooned, which just finished airing. And I helped out a bit on season 2. And I'm going to be stepping into a production role on our upcoming season 3. Casting information will be coming out soon. And then, yes, I played Survivor Angelica Medieval Mayhem coming out at some point soon. And got into it. I really got into it from my friend who started playing a Big Brother one. He knew I was a huge Big Brother fan, so he showed me the episodes of him playing. And I was like, this looks like a blast. And then he was the one who got me onto my first game. And so we've run our own little Big Brother Vancouver game out here. It's mostly our friends who are mostly all in the theater and the entertainment industry. So the drama is big, but at the end of the day, it's just a really fun weekend with our friends. So love them a lot. Happy to be here. Excited to talk about Teeny, our LRG vet in the game still. So, and my number 1 draft pick. So I'm pretty happy right now.
We do have to break down Teeny because I got some thoughts. Thoughts.
Daniel, question for you real fast.
Okay.
Did you provide Paige an application to the Survivor fan club?
This is a rehearsal. I'll put it in her words. This is a rehearsal. So, if I like what I hear, and when we talk about Sue, you might get an application in your inbox when this is over.
Okay.
We're always looking for members, and we have board spots available. So just let me know. But you're gonna get you're gonna get the full gamut of Sue tonight because I got some things.
Oh,
So
we've got to talk about Sue. I mean, this was the night of Sue's big move. It finally happened.
If you call it that. Stephen, before we get started, what do you grade the episode? Professor Stephen, what are you grading it this week?
So I really enjoyed this episode for the intricacy of the dynamics. So I think we walked out of last episode like, I'm not quite sure where things go forward now that Gabe is out, and like immediately we see this whole reconfiguration of this the 5 bottom feeders versus the 3 big threats and kind of come together, and like I don't think we anticipated it working like that at all. So I was fascinated seeing kind of those dynamics evolve and seeing how do people figure out navigating those dynamics. So 8.5 out of 10.
8.5. That's solid. That's a solid episode, man. It obviously opens and Kyle is everyone's hugging him. Like nothing aggravates me more than when you vote somebody out and then you go back to camp and everybody's like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry I had to vote out your boy." No, you're not. No, you're not. So, but he continues to have this epiphany of, if I don't win immunity challenges, I'm going home. So, Paige, I'll ask you, if you are strictly just a physical threat, people really with Kyle, they basically crowned him a threat. I don't think anything outside of the physical challenges was he a threat. And I don't necessarily think it was because he was so good at them. I just think everybody else was that bad at them.
Yeah. I mean, I think you nailed a lot of it right there. Kyle, to me, calls back to a certain era of Survivor, which was super fun to see on this season. He's someone who I think if he had played like a season 10, like I think probably the Ian Palau comparison has been drawn a lot. He's someone super physical, seems to be great at these kind of endurance challenges and really socially liked, not necessarily socially locked in, maybe as much as he would want to be with someone who has this kind of visible threat level. Because I do think he was given this title of, the unshakable Kyle, he cannot be beaten. And the second time he's not immune, we have to take him down. Because the first time they let him walk. The first time they said, Kyle, go free. You're not that big of a threat yet. And then now this second time around, he's gone. And then to quickly mention something that you talked about, I think when you come back to your tribe after tribal council and the entire group is going, I'm so sorry we took out your buddy, that's got to be every alarm bell ringing for you to be like, oh, if everyone's apologizing to me, I'm next.
Yeah,
like, that's what I think, and that's what I hear when I see that.
So,
Stephen,
I have a question to the two of you actually real fast.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of seen the episode, this whole, what's the chance that Kyle will win a challenge or all the challenges? And so what chance would you give Kyle winning the final 7 challenge? Well, without even seeing what the challenge is, what percent chance do you think Kyle would win it?
In this cast, 85% chance.
That's high. I would agree with that in a sense because of the types of challenges that we've seen. We've seen a lot of like they're not like tests of like physical strength, but a little bit of endurance and like balance and like these weird quirky things that people that I think have nothing to do with your physical nature, but there's nothing to categorize it as, so it just gets lumped into you're a physical threat when you can hold a ball on a plate or balance on a beam. Like, so I think you're right, Paige. It's a very high likelihood. The longer he goes, the more of those he will win. And I think I said it before and I'll say it again. I think it's a lot to do with not how good he is, but how bad the others are at those particular events that are thrown at them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they will have puzzle challenges theoretically eventually.
There's gotta be a puzzle somewhere. Someone give me a puzzle somewhere here, please. Begging to see one. Yeah, like we're seeing a lot of like muscular endurance and balance and like this kind of mental focus continuously being tested in this season is what I'm seeing in the individual ones. And Kyle seems pretty darn locked in on those. And I think that paired with his beautiful life story, that's what gives him the winning game at the end.
Mhm.
It's more his story that I'd be more concerned about.
Yeah. Stephen, do you, if you're hearing like Kyle, he's got a compelling story for like if he's sitting at a final three, like he's gonna grab some heartstrings and you know perpetuate some tears from people and really maybe garner some votes. Yep, just playing that violin, man, just playing that sad song. But is that something that you outwardly need to tell people? Like, I feel like it's really early to be disclosing a lot of that information to the people in your tribe.
I mean, I think it's a balancing act of you want to build meaningful connections with people, and so telling your story really helps with that. But the extent that where you kind of frame yourself as like, well, shoot, he's a family man who's winning challenges, can likely in the end, and I think that story is going to be so persuasive it becomes a bit of an issue, right? And so I think there really is merit. I think of what did Jeremy do in Second Chance, where he disclosed like Mbala's pregnant at Final Tribal Council. That's when he kind of lays that bomb down.
Yeah,
That's when you drop the bombs right there. That's how you get folks, especially if you can make it there, or if you feel like you got a chance and it's 1 or 2 votes that you need to swing your way. I don't know if that swings an entire jury, but it could definitely pull 1 or 2 undecided people. But let's get into Sue. All right, Sue is at a point now where she's 20 days in and she's got a lot going on. And Stephen, I told you this. I said when she gets like 12 to 13 days in, the Botox and all the contouring and all that's going to just be out the window, and she's going to look like she's been there a year. And she's got dirt all over her face and looks terrible. And then to add to that, she tells everybody that she's just emotionally drained and she's just, you know, it's been tough on her. What's been tough on her? She has an immunity idol. Like what
something the show has seemingly forgotten about. We haven't talked about this in so long. Where is the idol coming in?
Very true.
They bring it into that. It's like the little intro segment. It's like she's an idol, and then we don't get any mention of it like the episode.
Nothing else.
Someday it'll pay off, I assume.
Maybe. Covered in blood to get the idol.
As the president of the Survivor fan club, I can assure everybody, I'll rest assure everyone right now, that idol will be played, and it will be played to tip the scales in her favor. You watch. Maybe not this week, but soon.
So, Mr. President, your biggest number 1 enemy is gone. What's left? Is it just the victory lap now? Where does the Survivor fan club go from here?
All right, so let me backtrack to answer this question. Okay, how on earth Kyle early in the game throws Sue's name out, because like you got to throw somebody's name out there. And from that moment on, she's like, she's out for blood with that guy. But Caroline can keep information from her and not have her vote the right way. And all of a sudden now they're hugging and they're okay. Like within like 6 hours. Like how is that possible? Like I would immediately take my brain would immediately go from Kyle and go straight to her and be like, all right, you're enemy number 1 now. Like, I've got to do something about you.
It was a close call.
Yeah.
Okay, but
it's a close call for like a night. And then they got a decent sleep. And then she was like, my number 1, my daughter, my ally. Which Mother Sue, we love to see it. She's a forgiving goddess. But yeah, I also didn't. I mean, maybe this says more to like the Caroline and Sue relationship and what they've built over the past 20 whatever days it's been. If I'm in that position, if I am Sue, if I can put myself in that beautiful blonde hair, dirt caked all over me. And if someone leaves me out at the vote at final, what was it, 9? If someone leaves me out at final 9 with someone who is my number 1, I'd have a really hard time looking past that. If someone runs my name down day 1, I'll remember it. But yeah, to me, I was like, oh, I think I'd have a different reaction to this. But maybe we're not seeing the full story of how deep that relationship really goes. So I wouldn't
Paige,
have picked that, but good for her.
When you put yourself into Sue's mind, did you picture yourself as 45 or 72?
I consider myself ageless, as young as I need to be, as old as the wind, however I need to fit.
That's a great answer. I mean, that is very favorable for being in the fan club when you can appreciate age as, nothing more than just a number.
Sue is a state of mind, and I love that. She's been in these challenges right at the end, right there.
I mean, so Paige, do you think Sue will go on a winning streak and win out the rest of the season?
If Sue wins out, can I say it might be my favorite end game that ever happens? I'll say if Sue wins for the next however many, I'm even like losing track of how many challenges we have to see. If she like wins all the immunities, gives up immunity, and then wins fire, and then walks into final and wins it all. I mean, give them the Emmy. At that point, you can't write a better story. I would love to see it. Will I? I don't. I would love to see it.
Hey, it's coming.
She gives an idol to Andy. Andy walks there. She gives her immunity up to Caroline. She walks into final tribal with Andy and Caroline on her side. She goes, I've won the most challenges of anyone in this game.
That's the one thing that I think I would be floored if Sue gave that idol away. I would just be.
I don't think she will, but
I would be distraught. I think I would be very sad because I feel like that would be the time where she goes home. I'll say this: Caroline's olive branch that she extends to Sue, I think, is nothing more than just a fake gesture at best because she realized that Gabe being gone doesn't bode well for her. And I think this new alliance that she kind of has, I think she's on the outside looking in when all things are said and done. And if it comes down to them or her, I think it's going to be her. And she realizes that. So she's like, I gotta mend the fence here. I gotta do something, Sue.
Yeah.
Let me hug you. Let me tell you how much I love you. Did I tell you look beautiful today? You don't look a day over 41. I can't believe it. Just pumping her up, man. I think Sue is ready to make a move, and I've been saying this for 4 episodes, but I think she's ready. I think it's time. Maybe she's getting soft.
Who's the move?
I think Caroline's the move. Like you gotta put her out there because one thing, Stephen, I'll ask you. Out of all the weeks, we've talked about Caroline kind of being in it, but like kind of forgotten as well. You go back and you look at the votes, and she's been on the right side of all of the votes and in the mix as far as like getting the intel of who to vote for. Even to the point where like she voted Gabe out. Does that say enough for her playing a good game? Because in reality, I just don't feel like she's doing a whole lot.
I mean, I think being on the right side of the numbers, being able to say, "Hey, I've been very in tune socially. I've been doing what I need to." Like we've seen people kind of win that style of game, but it also depends on who she's sitting with, right? Yeah. If she sits next to the strategic mastermind who says, "Well, she just went with me on the moves I orchestrated," she's dead. If she's with 2 players, let's pretend Andy and Sue gets to the end and people don't understand their games, but people can understand her game. That would work really well for her, even if her game is straightforward, steady ship, didn't do anything wild or crazy. It's like, hey, I was social in the know. All you gave me the information I needed. I was able to vote correctly and direct things away from me and my allies when need be. And these are the 2 people I wanted to be with from the very start of the merge. Who knows?
Well, we got to talk Teeny. Because Rachel throws it out there and she says, I'm feeling good about Andy, Sue, Caroline, and Teeny. being the 5 that they want to roll with, and Teeny is good with that, but they do agree that a game without Genevieve, Kyle at that moment, and Sam would be better for them. This Teeny is, I like the game that she's playing, but I feel like she's getting caught in, like, I don't think she's doing any moves. I think she's getting caught in that I'll just play along with you guys because that's the right move, I know, but I'm not doing anything to create
what
that.
Caroline's doing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But for some reason, to me, I feel like her status in the tribe is higher than that of Caroline. And maybe that's a perception thing, but I feel as though people regard Teeny higher than what they do Caroline, because somebody like Andy, who's clearly towards the top, is telling her at Tribal, hey, this is how the vote's going to go. We need you to be on this, and here's how it went down. And that's, valuable information at that particular moment. So I feel like her status in the tribe is higher than that of Caroline, but I don't think she's done a whole lot more than what Caroline's doing. And Paige, I'll ask you, you're a Teeny fan. What's her route here? Like what's her end game? What's she trying to do?
I think from what I've heard of from people who know Teeny personally and have played LRGs with them and having seen their game so far, what I know and believe of Teeny is that if they're in the end and they're with the right combo of people, they're going to be socially liked at a pretty high level, and that they have a lot of experience with talking to these groups and knowing what these people resonate with and what they like. And I think in the new era of Survivor, that carries a ton. And I think we've seen it in a lot of our 40s era winners. And so for me, Teeny ticks a lot of those boxes, as well as the benefit of playing LRGs before going on Survivor is maybe you've gotten the chance to think through, how would I do this? What would that look like if I got to the end? How do I read my jury? You've been on the jury, so maybe you understand what it feels like to be on the other side. So what I'm reading is someone who has been well-liked enough that they've always gotten a flow of information, have been able to tell people what they want to hear. And if they get to the end, there's a couple votes I think that are pretty locked in Teeny's favor. Like, I think if Teeny's in the end, Saul's vote is locked. Saul's voting Teeny, I think. I think the only person that Teeny really has to worry about sitting beside at this point, because in my mind, Genevieve and Sam are
gone.
They're gone. They're out the door. Much love. But I think that they're probably the next two, probably. I think if Rachel's in the end, that creates a very interesting dynamic of, like, say we've got a Teeny, a Rachel, and probably a Sue or an Andy. Then I think it becomes a battle of social versus strategic and the different balances between those two. Rachel's got these advantages, and we know that she's going to use them probably in the next couple of episodes. She probably doesn't need to use them for the next two. But we're probably seeing those back to back, probably on 6 and 5 to get her to 4.
Mm-hmm.
So I think then it becomes a battle of Rachel and Teeny if this were the final 3 we saw. I think with Rachel there, Teeny's got a great chance.
Who does Rachel idle out at 5?
I think Teeny or Caroline.
Yeah.
The strongest player at that point, because I think at that point you've whittled down the numbers, and I guess we can get on to Rachel because this was her episode. This was she crushed this episode, and she went from being like not a marginal player, but a player that we could see winning. But now, like, she has the tools, and she's had the things happen, and she's thinking long term about how she needs to play certain things to get to the end. But I'm telling you, if Teeny wants to win, to go back to what you were saying, Paige, Rachel cannot be there. She just can't. And right now, I don't know. Rachel has a lot of bullets in the chamber, and I don't know if they have enough to balance that. Like, it would have to be just a total epic blindside for her, in my opinion, not to make Final 3.
Well,
or Fire,
Yeah.
which takes out a lot of great people at 4. So, do we know if Rachel can make Fire?
This makes me think of Heroes, Healers, Hustlers, where you have this targeted group, right? So I think it was Christy, it was Ryan, and I can't remember the other guy's name.
Yeah.
Cole, maybe not Cole. Cole was in the Showmans that season. But there's this group alliance. They take out one of them, and then Christy and Ryan kind of claw their way back on top. And it's interesting to kind of think of like, could there be a world where like the spy really turns on themselves? So they try to say, all right, we just need a 4 now. We don't need a full 5 because 4 is majority. And that solves the question of what happens if I don't know. I think one thing you're saying about Teeny's game earlier that really caught my eye is like I can really see her story. I think her story can kind of be 2 things. One, she's going to be the last Luvu standing, which I think is huge, and she's going to be the first one as the only person standing from their tribe. And her merge game has been very intermixed with all the other tribes, much more than a lot of people's.
And I agree with that. I think that's valuable to be able to do. And I think maybe that's the way you have to look at it is the social game sometimes doesn't have to be this outwardly dynamic, like social, like I'm very vocal. It could be I'm able to be a chameleon and mix into any group that is powerful because one, I'm able to have a little bit of socialization with them and have some common ground, but also like I feel like Teeny's a very likable person. Like it's hard for someone to go out there and go, I just don't like Teeny. Like I feel like Andy, on the other hand, it's easy not to like him, or even a Genevieve. I feel like it's easy not to like her, and she even like admits like her emotional connection, like she just doesn't want that. But you see it in this episode. She knows that. Genevieve knows, Sam knows, Kyle knows that they've got to do something because it's like they're going to get picked off one by one. But then, what do you know? A boat shows up, Stephen. A boat. And they get there.
Do you go on the boat in this new era? Do you go on the boat?
I think you have to do it exactly the way Rachel did it. Is go, okay, who is volunteering? And is that someone that I don't want to get something? If it is, then I need to just do it. Because I think at some point in a Survivor game, you're going to have to take chances and risk. And sometimes they may not pay off. But if they do, they could be game-changing moments. And I think for this, Rachel is at a crossroads where she's like, I don't want Sam just to be given this. But I also am very curious, like if I was to do this, I could, with an idol, I could set myself up for a Final 3 here. And that's what I was talking about when she's thinking long-term, how she wants to maneuver in the game. Like having that much foresight about, well, if I get this, like I'm in the driver's seat for the most part. The downside is Paige, you've played in a lot of games. If you go and you get something, which she does, like now are you a target just because you went? Even if you didn't get anything, people are going to make this assumption that you got it.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything like that, especially this late in the game, anything can become a target. And I think Rachel seems to be pretty aware of that, which I love to see, because if she didn't, I mean, she'd be a very different player than what I've seen her to be over this season. And I think she handles coming out of that pretty well. She chooses who she wants to tell the full information. She tells a couple people the truth. And then she seems to tell, I'm getting because she's in 2 3s now, right? She told Sue and Caroline that what she did get, which we have to talk about the challenge in a second.
And then she asked if she should tell the others.
Yeah, and she told them we'll talk later, right? She hasn't, to our knowledge, told them yet. And I think that's an interesting kind of breakdown.
I want to break that down. Let's talk about the challenge, the the challenge first. This is like some Saw stuff. Like
I love it.
Like
This is what it's like. It's like, all right, Rachel, let's play a game. You're getting on this boat and you're going to a barge deep in the middle of the ocean. You have to arrange colored balls on a table, all while the table is attached to weights. If the weights sink to the bottom, the table will roll off. If your colored balls are not in the correct columns before the table rolls off, your game will die. Do you want to play?
You know,
and that was great.
I have in my notes to use that button, but so I cheated. But here's the thing. I enjoyed this challenge a lot because a lot of times, like, you get caught into, I'm going somewhere to another island to do this. It's very rare where you go to the ocean and you're like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. But also, like, I liked about this that the mechanics of the game, like the actual table and the balls, that wasn't the focus. It was how much time, and it wasn't like an hourglass that's boring with sand. It, like, there was some visual to it. So whoever created this, whoever came up with this, more of this. This was beautifully done. Just a master class in advantage challenges. Obviously, I don't know, Stephen, have you done a challenge like that before?
We've seen kind of variants before. I'm thinking Heroes, Hustlers again, where like one of like the final 5 challenge was get the ball organized, but it wasn't by color in row. There's someone posted on Reddit like, hey, I made my own version of this game so you can play. I don't know what the best strategy is. I also have no idea how much time she had either. Like, was this a minute? Was this 2 minutes?
So when I was listening to the On Fire podcast, they said that they tested it and it took 3 minutes for the weights to sink and the rope to unravel. So if you're looking at, every 3 minutes, I think, what was there, 4 weights, 3 or 4 weights that she had to.
3 minutes total, 3 minutes per weight.
3 minutes per weight.
Oh,
which seems like an eternity. And part of me is like, all right, well, the puzzle didn't look that tricky, but then again, like, the puzzle itself really wasn't the focal point. It was the weights going over and how much rope is left. And so when you look at it in that lens, it's really hard to tell how difficult the puzzle actually was. So I'm assuming there was some moderate difficulty, but I think the difficulty wasn't so much that it was a hard thing to do. I think it was, you start feeling the pressure of those weights and you have you don't know how long it takes. Like, as soon as they hit and there's like, all right, you got to throw the next one. Like, you don't know what that time frame is because there's no like visual of the weight hitting the bottom. At least with an hourglass of sand, you can see kind of how much sand is left. And so I think when you look at it like that, very high anxiety, high intensity, a lot of pressure goes into that challenge. And I don't know if it actually played out like she finished the challenge and as soon as she picked it up, like the table flew off the bar. I don't know if that's really how it went down.
Like that.
It did seem like that.
Yeah.
And so if it did, like, they timed it right and everything, but she earned it. Paige, I'll start with you. What does an advantage, like, she gets to block somebody's vote. What does an advantage like this do for Rachel's game? Like, how does she go about using it?
I think with this particular group, I think it could be really important at a 6 vote. I think what's interesting with this particular group of people, you have 2 people who have, for reasons, been painted as like the 2 threats who will go. So if I'm Rachel and I'm holding on to a block of vote and an idol now, I've got a pretty beautiful setup for votes at 6 and votes at 5. I would be surprised if she brought it out before then. And unless something really went haywire, say they take out one of Genevieve and Sam, and then the other one wins immunity next week. That's, I think, the only reason I would see maybe that block vote coming out earlier. When numbers get smaller, that's when it's important. It's interesting because there's that 5. when she's going to time that out. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, to me, a block a vote isn't necessarily like a huge game changing necessarily advantage with this group. I think it could with this particular potion of people.
Yeah, like you, I believe that if you're going to use a block of vote and it's going to be meaningful, it has to be a small number, because one vote of 5 matters way more than one vote of 8, because you could still it would matter, but you still might have to double up your immunity idol and your block of vote to save yourself in some different aspect, however you played out. Stephen, she goes back to camp and she tells everyone that they're all wanting to know, and she goes, well, I can't participate in tribal. That was like, why would she word it like that? Why would she say, I was given this challenge, I couldn't do it, and now I can't participate in tribal? Like if I guess it really does it really matter what you say, because I don't think anybody's going to believe you anyways.
Yeah, I think her lie was whatever. I think more importantly, she grabbed her lie and said, here's the real dirt, and shared it with them. And I think block of votes, like we said, those aren't game breaking, game changing, and people can play around once they know of it. But like you said, I think Final Six is where it's going to come out, because then you simply need a majority of 3 to rule things. And that's going to matter a lot. What was interesting with the block vote is this is the first secret block vote we've had, I believe. All other block votes have been public, right? You have to say, hey, I'm like blocking your vote, but this is a secret one. Which means
I missed that.
Doesn't she always have to vote first now, so she has a chance to play it before anyone else votes?
Oh, or would she have to tell? Like, is there a gesture to production she has to do in tribal? Like, I would like.
I assume she goes up to. I assume they'll make her vote first. She'll be able to play it then, and then whoever comes after will say, "Sorry, your vote's blocked." Otherwise, like someone votes, I'm blocking their vote, and then Jeff just doesn't reveal their parchment, I guess.
I think that's a production thing. I mean, when they hear confessionals and they're boots on the ground, they're kind of surveying what's going on. If they feel as though like Rachel's going to play this thing, they'll probably just go, all right, Rachel, it's your turn to vote, and she'll be the first one to vote.
But it's interesting with it being a non-public block of votes, because people won't be able to react publicly or reevaluate things, or you don't make a necessary enemy by saying, hey, Paige, I'm blocking your vote. You are not voting here.
How pissed would you be if you got back there to vote and they're like, sorry, your vote's been blocked. Go back and sit down.
I think the shock would be more than being pissed. When it's like, oh shoot, that was in play and I didn't know about it.
Yeah. I think the shock in the moment, and I think if it was like a secret reveal of like, surprise, you don't have a vote, I think I'd feel a bit more like, well, that's theatrical. Versus I think if someone stands up in tribal and says, I am blocking you, Paige's vote, I would be like, oh, I'm affronted. This is a very personal one-on-one, versus like a secret of like, oh, someone thought I was threatening enough to take my vote. That's kind of fun. Like, I think it'd be a different vibe. I mean, I don't know if it's me yet.
There is a level of like, I can appreciate that. You think that highly of me that you're going to block my vote? All right.
My vote? Wow.
I mean, I feel better when I go out because someone plays an advantage against me. I'm like, okay, at least I was hard to get rid of. Something had to happen to make it so. I feel a little bit better when that's the case. It still sucks, but like,
for sure.
Yeah, that's it would be like if you were a deciding vote and you got your vote blocked, like that would be a tough pill to swallow. But if people thought that highly of you, you got your vote blocked, but it worked out and you're still in the game, then you're like, all right, cool. Like at least I know,
So question for both of you. Have you thought of the lie you would tell? So you go to whatever the challenge is, you win the advantage. Do you know what lie you would want to tell people? Like Would you just go blanket wide? I lost my vote. No need to worry. Or would you like tell that lie, then have a different lie to tell your alliance of what you got or what happened?
I think it would depend on the advantage. I think with a block a vote, I mean, hard to tell without like the full case. I feel like a block a vote I would be more willing to tell. If I got an idol or something, I would probably pretend it was something else. Because I don't think knowing myself, I'm a decent liar, but like if I'm excited about something, you're gonna know. So if I arrive on the beach, I'm like, hey guys, lost my vote. I know that's not the lie. So then I have to think, okay, so then what's something that's similar to the truth, but 2 steps to the left? So then it would probably be like I would probably lie and say it was a block a vote, like a block a vote or an extra vote, depending on where it was on the Richter scale of advantages. If I'm walking back with a super idol, I'm not gonna be like, hey guys, look at this.
Look what I got. How about that? No, yeah. I think what I would do is I would have to see where the game was. How much in jeopardy was I? Do I need to curry some favor amongst some people and use it as like a, hey, I'm telling you this so that we can play this whenever we, need it, and kind of like create some type of alliance that way. But my first inclination is I want to come up with something that I don't have to disclose what actually happened. I think I could come up with something a little more creative than I lost my vote at Tribal. And that be that.
Yeah.
But Paige, you're talking about, you wouldn't be able to hide the emotion, but you're an actress. Like, I feel like you would definitely be able to act your way out of that.
I think, and this is just based on like the LRGs I've played and having been in like the high pressure. There's certain things that I can conceal and feel good about. And then there's other times where I know that I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I think it's part of my gifts being an actor is that we have to be super in touch with like what's really going on. And so like, I know if I'm really stressed about something, I have to come up with some other reason. If it's that I'm about to blindside a friend, then I need to have another reason why I'm feeling this way, because I know I'm going to give that away. If I find a huge advantage or I win an immunity, like if I win a thing, that's going to be a reaction 10 out of 10. Get the cameras on me. I'll give a show. If I find an idol or whenever I've found anything, I've been very excited and I've had to try and pin that under. But I remember reading something that Dan Giesling said about telling lies in these kinds of games. And he says, tell your lie, but wrap it in the truth. Mm-hmm. That was his kind of strategy on how to like pass things through. So I've always had that in the back of my mind. And that's where a lot of how I would try and navigate that. I've also just always wanted to pretend that I had an advantage that I didn't have. Like I've always wanted to like play a piece of paper and pretend I have a knowledge is power and see if I could get someone to give me their things at Tribal. Like I've always wanted to do that. And I think it'd be fun, even if it doesn't work. But like that, I think it would be like something cool to do. If you have a paper, pretend it's something else. That's maybe not as interesting.
Or you disclose it to everybody and you hang it from a tree and you go, all right, it's there. Whoever wants it, go get it. And just watch chaos. But let's move forward and let's talk about obviously Rachel elects to tell Caroline and Sue. Sue's feeling great about herself. She was like, Gabe did the same thing. He trusted me and told me. And now Rachel, my number one is gone. And now Rachel's telling me this. Like, now we're number one. We're best friends. She's feeling good. Caroline, on the other hand, she's like, I feel good that she told me because it just makes the target on Rachel's back bigger and it creates a shield for Caroline. And there's some truth to that. And I think Caroline's doing a lot of shield hiding, but she's right. Like the target now becomes bigger because Rachel then elects to tell Andy and Teeny. So basically, if you tell Teeny, from what I know, Teeny gonna tell everybody else because every time she's been given information, she's told somebody. And there's only 2 more people left to tell outside of them. And like if she tells the wrong one, and I wouldn't trust Andy as far as I could throw that dude because I feel like he's gonna turn around and go, we really need to get Rachel out of here. She's over there with all these things, and like that would be the next move. So, but so she tells Andy, she tells Teeny, and in the midst of that, Genevieve pitches the idea of Rachel that either Sue or Kyle, depending on if one of them two win immunity. And I think it's funny the way Genevieve, said that to Rachel was the fact that they've basically conceded and they said Kyle or Sue is going to win immunity. And whoever doesn't, that's who we vote out. Like, to me, that's silly. Like, I just don't understand that. And of course, Kyle, had he not have 5 more seconds, probably would have beat Rachel on the immunity, but we'll get to that. Obviously, this is a challenge that in the LRG community, it's been done many different ways, many different formats, and the same exact format that you saw with the pendulum attached to a rope, and you're having to walk blocks with letters to spell a word, and all while keeping it steady without falling. That's been done in many LRGs. They posted a bunch on social media of people doing it, and I've never personally done that specific challenge like that. Mm-hmm. But there's got to be a degree of difficulty, but also a degree of, all right, once you got it, you kind of got it, right? Stephen, have you done that challenge before?
I've done a variant of it, but I do like those kind of rope balance style challenges. I just think you saw how, I'm sure you lost track how many times things fell during the challenge. And it is deceptively tricky, and I think just going really slow. Like sometimes people win outright, but it's very rare.
Super rare.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if it was 3 or 4 blocks, I think you could figure it out and go, all right, I can be steady for 4. But when you're spelling the word immunity, like that's a lot of times and a lot of steps and a lot of very steadiness that you just got to be able to control. And I think that I don't know if you guys saw Rachel and Kyle, how they were doing it, but I think they were letting the rope slide through one hand and then bracing it with the other. They weren't going like hand over hand.
No.
And I think everyone else's fault was that that's what they were doing. But these two were allowing the rope to slide and kind of be very fluid as opposed to grabbing it and it jerking and then stopping it with each hand, So I believe that if Kyle had another 30 seconds, he maybe would have caught her. I don't know, but Rachel obviously sweats it out, and gets the job done.
Love that challenge.
Teeny at that point, they panned to Teeny, and Teeny's like, it's time for Kyle to go. Which is funny because, I think we all knew it's time for Kyle to go at that point. He didn't win, and they've been saying if he don't win, then he's got to go. So, there's, you get back to tribal, and Stephen, like, Kyle is really, like, on the bummer. He's down, as he should be, but, like, it almost seems as though he was like, all right, whatever happens, happens. I've done all I can do. He was kind of like a defeated man. I don't know if Kyle got a bad rap for being the challenge threat or being a threat, but clearly everyone was ready to get rid of him. The votes, Teeny gets a vote from Kyle. Genevieve gets a vote from Andy, and then everybody else piles on Kyle. Stephen, I'll ask you. Teeny getting a vote here. Even though it was from Kyle who was eliminated, does that put anything in other players' minds to like, well, why is Kyle throwing out of all the people to throw out there, he threw Teeny out? Why Teeny?
Either A, he thinks Teeny is the biggest threat and therefore is casting his vote on Teeny to kind of signal that. B, in case like maybe we don't ever see whether he came out with that organically or people were telling him about Teeny, which is interesting. We don't have no sense of like, was Teeny some like bluff plan that they were conveying to him? I don't know, to be honest.
And it's one of those things, Paige, where you sometimes you got to have a bluff play. Somebody's got to be willing to let their name be the one. But in this situation, like Stephen said, we didn't see like what made him go with Teeny. But if he did this on his own accord, or maybe other people were saying, well, Teeny is definitely like, were they telling him, were other people chirping in his ear going, maybe we should vote Teeny, and then it just ended up not going that way at the very end.
Well, I think it's interesting because I was reading Kyle's exit interview today, and he talks about this because I think a lot of people who are watching were kind of confused about this vote of where it came from, where's it going to, and according to Kyle's perspective, he tried to get some votes and started some conversation about Teeny because, and something we've talked about earlier on this conversation, is that Teeny is someone who, if you tell them something, they will tell everyone. So he prefaced it saying, like, I love Teeny, like I love him dearly, but specifically told Teeny something to see if Teeny was the leak that they thought that they were. And 10 minutes later, Caroline came running back to Kyle being like, hey, I heard you said this thing. And so Kyle went, Teeny's the leak. Teeny's the person who has all this information and is traveling it. So I think Kyle, my understanding from that interview was Kyle was trying to get Teeny as this target as a, can you trust someone who's so socially linked? Can you trust someone who's going to spill the secrets this late? So I think it was a legit attempt at a move from Kyle, but I think it's something he says right after he wins. He says something to effect right after he loses the immunity. He says something along the lines of, all right, time to go try the social game. And so I think this is his chance of doing that. He just happens to go against someone who is really socially sound. So it's that attempt at that against someone who's not going to do that. And it ended up being such a non-factor that it ended up not even making the episode cut, is my read of that.
And it really seems like a day late, dollar short. Like, you lose the challenge. Okay, now let's play the social game. Like, no, man, how could you, like, I'm sure he was doing stuff that we're not saying, but how could you, what were you doing to prepare for this inevitability? Because there's no way you, like, the likelihood of you losing is high.
Yeah. We're at Final 8. If you haven't thought about what's going to happen when you lose an immunity, oh no, it is too late. My friend.
Well, the sad reality is for 3 weeks he was the guy. Like, he was on the chopping block too. So for him not to have thought until he waited until now to decide he wanted to up his social capital, is way, way, way too late. And, I like Kyle. I hate people who win challenges and they get marked and they end up going home. But you got to have more. You got to bring more to it than just deciding, well, my name's on the chopping block, I'm probably going to go home. Let me give this one last effort. It can't be like that, because on the opposite, the person he went after was the person who has been doing that since day one and has good, solid foundation and good roots in a lot of different people's camps. And like him throwing her name out there, I think, fell on deaf ears. But I wondered, basically how he came up with that, and was it something that was floating around there they just didn't get in the episode, or if that's something just organically in the moment he was like, I think she's the strongest, let me vote for her.
And maybe that'll come up next episode. We see some whisperings about maybe like a girls' alliance maybe happening. The ever elusive, always talked about living rent free in everyone's head.
First words.
Maybe we'll see some after effects from that coming into this next episode. But we still have Jennifer and Sam to vote out. So
hey,
who knows?
There's a lot to happen. Stephen, you saw the previews for the Girls Alliance. Is it a high likelihood that they can get this off the ground? Is it just Survivor producers really just liking to throw the idea of it out there, knowing like it's never going to catch any fire? Or do we see something out of this?
I don't see this being a real thing, especially given how we're talking about how Rachel, Caroline, and Teeny will gun for each other at the very latest at 5.
Well, and the problem is if you're any of the girls, in order to see yourself winning, you have to have at least one of the other guys there. Like you can't have 2 of those collective 5 girls at the final 3 with you, because I think your odds decrease significantly to win because they're just better players on that side. But I don't know. I part of me like really wants to see some chaos like that. But part of me is like, Sue, don't get caught up in that. Like, just keep playing your game. You got your idol. Just, keep pretending like you don't. Like, everyone's falling asleep on it, and they don't even know you got it anymore. So,
stay the course.
Stay the course. That's right. I don't know, Stephen. Do you think we're gonna get an idol play at any point? Like, I feel like they're gonna have to, because I don't know if they have them and don't need them and don't play them. Like, I'd be so upset. I'd be so disappointed, just because like we went through the whole fiasco of the paint with Sue getting hers and like lying about it, and it was a terrible lie. And then they found out about it, and then it never was brought up. Yeah, sorta. And then now Rachel has an idol and an advantage, but nobody knows that she has an idol. Sam kind of is like, I think Rachel has something, but doesn't know for sure. Like, but I just don't see, like, and maybe that's good. Like, I don't see the avenue in which they have to play it. And, maybe it comes to fruition next episode. We get an idol play and it shakes things up, because I think as far as shaking things up, this season has been pretty good with shakeups. I think there's been some strange things happening and strange occurrences, live tribals that have done a lot of like chaotic things, and but in the end, very good episode. Anything you want to add, Stephen?
If you were part of this group of 5, would you have targeted Kyle as well and say time to go because I want to win challenges, or would you have been looking at Genevieve and Sam saying, let's leave Kyle around as a future target, let's take out someone else instead?
I like knowing that there's always a definitive target. So if you don't go after Kyle, the next time he's going to be a definitive target. So if the longer you keep him, the more that he can be a target. The problem is like you can't wait too long to get rid of him, because then he wins the immunity that you don't want him to win, and you can't get rid of him, and now he's found himself at the finale. But yeah, I think to me, you could have went with a Genevieve or a Sam. I think you really could have. I think Genevieve should have been the one that they went after. But Kyle works. I mean, it's been foreshadowed for 4 weeks now that they're gonna get Kyle out of this game, and Sue's been the leader of that pack, even though she didn't do shit to make that happen other than put his name down on paper. But she's gonna claim it, baby. She's gonna be like, I wanted him out and he's out of here.
And I'm so happy she's gonna claim it. I'm so happy for her.
Good for
her.
I
look forward to the confession we get at the start of the next episode with Sue saying, I did this. Who's next on my grudge list?
Yes. Yeah. I want to see Sue's hit list.
If Caroline's not at the top of that, I'm resigning from this fan club.
That would be what a turn that would have taken.
I might cry. I might cry.
Do whatever she wants with it.
Paige, looking back on the episode as a whole, anything you want to add?
Ooh, little things I would have loved to. How do you two think you would have done on that ball puzzle? Because I would have loved to do that. I've played that game on my cell phone for like days, and I was like, oh, sweet. That looked really fun. The pressure, that looked a blast. How do you two think you would have fared on Rachel's?
Do you know what the best approach to that would be? Was it what Rachel's approach was?
Because of how it was edited, I couldn't see the puzzle super clearly or what the moves she was making were, and she nailed it. So like she did it. So I assumed that it was fine. I've done it enough to kind of know what to watch for usually and like what colors you have to move where. But I couldn't get a clear look at it to be like, oh, I would have moved yellow to 5 and then followed with blue to 3. Like I couldn't get a great visual of it, but I know that well enough that I was like, oh yeah, I would have hucked that weight in the ocean and ran to that table.
I think depending on the amount of time, if you're telling me that like if we're taking their word for it and it's 3 minutes per weight for that thing to sink and you have 12, let's say you have 12 minutes total, I think I could figure it out within that 12 minutes. I don't think it was, because I think once you figure out like how to get the balls where you need to get them, it's just a matter of, all right, I got to move fast enough now. And then I think if you can figure that out quickly enough, then completing it is just a matter of having enough time to do so. And I think I could have done that, yes, in the amount of time if it's 12 minutes. If it's like 3 minutes, not a chance in the world. Like not, I would still be looking at the puzzle. In 3 minutes, I'd be like, well, shit, here we go. Here goes nothing. I may not even move the single ball in 3 minutes. I kid. I would have at least moved one. Just
at least a single.
Just a single. All right, Stephen. Plug or promote time, baby. What we got? What's out there?
A bunch of stuff. I saw there was a Big Brother style game, the Reindeer Games, that ran near Austin this past weekend. So you can
Santi, my boy Santi,
online.
Yep. Santi, this is his. He's building the network in Austin, Texas. So,
absolutely.
I talked to him after he was done. He said it went phenomenal. He's going to make it a staple. It's going to be a yearly tradition. So y'all be on the lookout every year for the Reindeer Games.
Yeah.
I like that.
The more stuff I me, the better. I'm excited.
It sounds like
you got casting. Any casting? Any other games?
Paige, do you know when Maroon may be casting in the future?
Can't confirm. But I believe I'm just gonna say this now, and we'll go. Season 2 should be releasing soon, and I believe the intention is for with either the premiere of season 2 or the finale of season 2, season 3 applications to open. You'll be chatting to me, so
look at that. Hot off the press.
So that should be coming up soon. Go follow Marooned on Instagram. I don't know our exact tag. I'm so sorry. That's not my job. Follow us there. You'll see all info on there.
Nice.
And go watch our YouTube.
And there is a documentary coming out, correct?
Yeah.
I saw the posting.
For any host, if you're hosting a game, they want your information for this documentary because apparently they're putting all the LRGs out there that apply, and they're going to do a big, they're going to tell a lot about the story and the backstory of these games and how it's become so popular, and just really go down the rabbit hole that a lot of us went down once we figured out that there was this community, because it's a very, very vast community full of very great people, and it's fun. More than anything, it's fun. And I think in the world today, we could all use more fun.
Absolutely.
So, all right. We got next week coming. We got Girls Alliance, foreshadowed. We got Sue with an idol. We've got Rachel with an advantage block of vote. We got Rachel with an idol. We've got Genevieve and Sam trying to figure out what's next. We got Caroline weaseling her way through, and we got Andy just doing Andy stuff. So it's going to be a good episode. We'll be back. Don't know when. Maybe same time as normal, but you'll definitely know. We'll be back for sure. For Stephen, for me, for Paige. Paige, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, guys.
A lot of fun. We'll definitely have you back at some point to do it again and talk about it. So this has been the Live Reality Games Podcast, Survivor 47, episode 11 breakdown. We're out. Peace.